maybe we can do, if anyone is brave enough and wants to also get some free exposure to everyone in the room, we can look at your socials together and kind of go through and talk about how it plays into some of the do's and don'ts. Would anyone be up for that? Any brave souls? I won't be rude. I won't be mean.
Can we do cost gaps?
Some cost gap artists.
What's yours? Oh, we've got a volunteer. Let's do it. Okay. You want to pull them up?
So, we're going to social media, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whichever platform do you use the most?
Okay. So, we had recently rebranded to 2 Mile Hill.
Okay.
We were previously Nexix.
Okay.
You've never heard of it, right?
No, I did actually.
You have?
I was talking with you guys about punk bands.
Oh, yeah?
Punk band?
Can you? But not really. We're not a punk band. We're more of we're pop, but
Okay.
we fuse like Caribbean fusions and hip hop, etc. into it.
Cool.
The reason we changed is, and I'm gonna ask you a trick question here. Can you spell it by hearing Nexix?
No.
If you were to try and search for it.
Well, I would probably say NEXUS.
Right, and that's not it. So the main problem that we had was that people couldn't find us when we performed, wherever we performed, and we say, hey, we're Nexix. They don't know how to search for us on social media, and it was a problem, a huge problem. So we brainstormed for quite a while, and we came up with 2 Mile Hill, which is a place in Barbados. Right, so this is our social media. This is our Instagram page.
Okay, can I go through it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you've got 10K followers, which is awesome, great work. And you're getting 104 likes here. You're getting, let's see, 95, 66, 61, 450 views. So video is obviously doing really well. Video on Instagram in general is doing really well because it tracks the views, not just the likes. That it looks like it helps to make the platforms look really good. 160, so people really liked when you posted that new music. So that's a good sign. People are really eager. And also, let's look at the comments. So lots of excitement generally. That's awesome. Do you think when you post babes, they get a lot of likes generally? Yeah. Okay, cool. So if you were to say, like, generally you'll get an average of like 150 views or likes, and then you divide that by your 10,000, that would be your percentage of engagement rate.
Okay.
So how do we talk about making money from those fans, right? How do we take those super engaged fans, put them into a newsletter, and give them a sneak peek of the new album, the new EP, or let them pre-order it with a limited edition t-shirt, something like that, right? In terms of, I think that there could maybe be just some critical feedback. Some of the quality of the photos that haven't performed well are not high. So that might be why, just maybe they're not as clear or clean, you know?
Okay.
You've also got a lot of different kind of types. So like you could do maybe a consistent filter like we talked about.
Okay.
There's also, let's see. Yeah, videos are doing really well, so maybe doing more videos of doing like even if it's you just talking over video rather than writing about the new album in the caption, because if your fans are really responding to that, then you might as well roll with that, you know?
Okay.
Let's see. It sounds like you've got a really like fun voice with the fans that they're responding to. I would say if you were to ask more questions, they would probably respond.
Okay.
So when you release a new video, you know, what's your favorite part of the new video, or who's coming to the show, or whatever, stuff like that, because they were talking a lot on some of the posts, right?
Oh, yeah.
So generally your people are on Instagram, it looks like. You've got more people over there. You can also like pin this post to the top if you want to. Oh, okay. When you look at your insights in the back, actually maybe I'll show you an example so that everyone can see like the insights. So this is a band that I work with called Highs, and you can see at the top here if you're admin on the page, insights, right? It's being very slow now. Oh. And you can see really important information back here. So this is awesome for you as a starting point to help craft your voice and everything. So you've got men, you've got page views, you also can see which posts they are into and which ones they're not that into. So we got a lot here. But look, we boosted that one, we put a little bit of money behind it. And truthfully, I think we only put $10 behind it. And you see it's able to reach a lot more people because Instagram tries to make you pay.
Is it a fan page? Like, is it like this Facebook page or artist page?
Yeah, it's a fan page. So people can like it. It's not a group. Groups are not as easy for fans to find and like.
How do you do that if you have tens of thousands of fans keeping a conversation going?
It's a very time-consuming task. Maybe you can try to divvy it up between different band members so that someone's in charge of Twitter, someone's in charge of Facebook, someone's in charge of Instagram, and if you have some support like managers and stuff that can help. And then there's companies like ours that get hired specifically to manage that for people because it's too much, and you can lose strategy when you're just so busy reacting, and so you want to keep it centered. But when it gets to that point,
how do you do that? So if there's a band with 4 or 5 members and the fans are connected to a specific member and you're taking it over for them, and you talked about authenticity and it shouldn't be like a robot and it should sound like it's you. So how do you do that? And what if they say, hey, Janet, great outfit, where'd you get it, or whatever, something that only Janet is going to know, and you want to respond in a timely way. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's about closeness. Like if you have a third party doing like manager or a social media person, it's about being in constant communication. And for our artists, like we're texting with them on a regular basis, and we'll screenshot and be like, hey, this just came in. And then it's just in a form where it's like, oh, they're just sitting, they're in a tour van or they're just about to go for sound check, but they can quickly write back and be like, blah, blah, blah. They don't have to do the whole, hey, thanks so much for reaching out. Well, we can do that, but we also get to know their style and their voice. And when we sit down with them to start, we do those core values, we make the strategy, what do we stand for, what's the voice of the accounts, and then we also make sure that the artist is still involved in the content as much as possible, so that they do the base content, they look it over, they edit it, they make it their own voice, and then we get into the flow of that voice. So if they're always saying like, hey, yeah, blah, 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 then like we'll use those little things that make them unique, So, but the goal is that they're involved, and that if there's a specific question, we text it to them, we put it into a format where they don't have to monitor all the accounts, but then it's still genuine. For different band members and different people, like you can sign off with your initials for who was replying to that artist and who was replying to that person.
Can you give us an idea of what you charge bands and artists to do that?
Yeah, it's really different. I mean, there's a lot of really great people who do it that are independent and more able to be more flexible. We work with like a lot of the labels, and when there's specific marketing budget, and usually we come in to do the whole strategy, not just the social, but generally if it's just social, it could cost anywhere from like $1,500 a month to like $2,500 a month for a 4 or 6 month period. Those are like US dollars. But if you have someone who is maybe running a smaller agency and working with independent artists, maybe they could do for like $500 a month. That might be more of like an indie artist rate, to give an idea. What about someone who doesn't have as many fans as 2 Mile Hill? Does anyone want to give it a go, and we can look at an artist that's a bit more indie? All right, let's take a look. So this is your Facebook music page. Cool. You don't have to stay, or you can stay if you want. Okay. Okay. Beautiful photos. Very beautiful. So just right off the bat, I noticed something that might be confusing to someone who has like no idea who you are. So here you've got short hair, and here you've got long hair, which we all know who cares, right? That's fine. But ultimately, when you're introducing yourself to someone for the first time, it's good to have a distinct image that they can latch onto and they know, that's a beautiful girl with the short hair, you know, or the long hair. So it's kind of deciding which one, and it doesn't even have to be the current one, but it's more about what your image is. And if someone comes to a show and is a little bit different, but it's the same, you know, that's fine. So 900 likes, that's awesome. Honey Jam, shout out. This is awesome. This is an awesome photo because it's in the moment, it's live, it's doing your thing. But you could have put a caption here as well, because you can repost someone else's photo but add a caption and say you had this amazing time, what an experience, blah, blah, blah. And then additionally, Honey Jam can also shout out and tag the artist so that there's more cross back and forth. Yeah, lots of photos, which is really great. I would say keep that going, and especially the live photos. Let's see engagement though. So engagement is low. Facebook is harder than Instagram. So it looks like there's lots going on. You have lots to take photo, you know, lots happening. So I think it's about presenting it in a bit more of a clean, concise way. And then in terms of engagement, let's think about maybe you have to start by putting like a $10 behind a certain post to get that engagement up, and then from there it will keep going. But in terms of engagement, maybe we can ask questions a bit more. Maybe you can even shout out or retweet, like if a fan took a photo with you or they took a photo of you performing, use that photo and tag them, and then their fans will like it, or their friends, and you know, kind of pulling in more conversation. I think Facebook should be the main point where you're finding people. And so if you, maybe you can have a nice header designed that links to your latest release. Like just from on here, I don't know where I can see you play. Right. I don't know what your new music is or what I should be listening to or what the most recent music is. So I would say you could use this to clean it up a bit, tighten it up, and present a much stronger front. So in the workbook, the SWOT analysis is really key, and this is like exactly the format that we use when we're sitting down with an artist that Universal has just signed, and they're like, we have like 200 fans, we're just building, we don't know, you know, we just got signed and we're trying to figure this out. So we sit down and we go through strengths. So what are things that you're really doing a great job at? Weaknesses, what are some of the things that we need to do? So based on the do's and don'ts, and so some of the things we've just been talking about. Opportunities, so I just mentioned Honey Jam, shouting another artist, that's an opportunity for increased engagement. And threats, so what are the things standing in your way or that could potentially harm? So maybe it's that, oh, there's a lot of people doing this type of thing. How do I look, how do I stand out from that pack? Or how do I, what, you know, if I'm aligning politically, might there be people who aren't down with that vision or stuff like that? Yeah.
One quick question, right? Okay, so I see like there's a consistency, there's a lot of artistry stuff there. Now, if I wanted to, let's say, post something more personal, like my daughter or maybe, you know, somebody that passed, or I don't know, but what are your views on like an artist doing something as personal as posting family members, maybe more than once? And do you see that as being a problem, or do you see it as, okay, fans getting to know you a little bit better, like you're just giving them a little bit more information so they know, well, hey, I'm a human too, and I have a boyfriend or this, or like what is there a line that you shouldn't cross when you're posting?
It's really about you and what you feel comfortable with and what kind of brand you want to have. So is your core values to be really open and honest with the fans and real with them, and this is my family, or is it to be a little bit more standoffish on those things and focus more on external things and be a little bit more kind of professionally cleaned up in that sense? Or, you know, I think it's really different. I mean, and it's important to assess that when you're thinking about what your voice of your brand is. Are you an artist, a performing artist, a recording artist, but also a mother, or do you want them to only see you as that and have no idea about the rest of it? And there's people who do that really well. There's people who do it really poorly, and they, and then they wish that they had been less family focused or more family focused, or, you know, it goes either way. It's like, I personally, my personal platforms are my like professional platforms for when I do speaking engagements and stuff, so it's all mixed in there, and people know, you know, my boyfriend's posted there if I'm on a personal vacation, or if I'm on a work trip, or if I'm giving tips about 10 things for your social media, or I'm saying congratulations to my sister on her graduation. You know, it's all there, and that's what I've decided I'm comfortable with and I'm cool with, but it's up to you if you want to separate those things and have personal Facebook for that versus the fan page versus, you know, it's personal Instagram or professional Instagram, you know? So it's really, like, I have the company Instagram that doesn't talk about those things. So it's really your own voice and how you think those things will either enhance or detract, or, you know, what your brand is. If you, this is kind of a weird example, but if you were like, you wanted your brand to be like this party girl and like late, you know, part of nightlife, DJing crazy parties, and then all of a sudden you've got like 3 kids, you know, it might not fit the brand, although you very well could be both of those things, you know. Or are you singing for families and then you don't want to have a post about you partying on the weekend, you know? So it's a different, you know, you just got to be concise and consistent. Yeah.
Hi, we have a question for one of our online viewers, Jamal Slocum. We just backtracked it a bit. He'd like to know, how do we package our brand to make it commercial for the international markets?
Great question. So the next part we're going to talk about, and we'll get rolling into that soon, is about outreach to industry people and specifically like other regions. And then we're going to also talk about your story. But how do you package it? I mean, depending on your type of music, you think about those things. First you need to know like who you are, and what you want to stand for, and then you should write out, you know, your visuals. What are they going to look like? What are they going to convey? How are they going to be consistent? And then ideally you can work with a professional photographer or or somewhere that you can get a really good quality visual, and then you will work on your bio and your voice and make sure that that's really consistent, and we're going to talk more about bios. And then you work on your core values and how those are going to be portrayed in your music, and then obviously your music needs to be off the charts amazing. So I would say when all of those pieces fit together well, that's when you're ready to export, and then you go into these international markets and this is who I am, this is my brand, this is what I stand for, and either you're with me or you're not with me, and the right people will be drawn in. And so in terms of how do you commercialize, I would say you might, you know, look at artists that you respect and think about, why do I respect them, and what have they done in their careers with their brand that has worked or hasn't worked for them, and what things have they been aligned with that have been crucial or damaging to their brand. And look at those case studies. And I sit with bands all the time and they'll be like, we really see ourselves as like an alt-J or like a this and that, and they'll kind of compare themselves. And so I would say, okay, that's great. What do you like about that? And how do we roll that into our own thing, but not get too mimicky, because copying someone is not creating a brand.
Do you have any suggestions in terms of managing that rebranding process? Because I mean that is quite major.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure if maybe Tumal wanted to share their experience in terms of how did you go about managing that process where people, because today was the first time I heard the actual reason for the change, and I wasn't sure if it was a breakaway, if someone had left, etc., etc. So are there any tips that maybe others can benefit about if they had to make a similar transition, how to, you know, make it more effective?
That's an awesome question, and you can chime in as well. I think that I've had a lot of those situations where a band has maybe ended and someone's gone off to do a solo project, and we've had to think about how do we segue those fans over, and then also where there's a name change or a genre change and stuff like that. So luckily, Facebook, Instagram are very easy to change your handle. If no one's taken it, you can just change it and all your fans will stay the same. Yes, you should think about your messaging plan and that all band members are saying the same thing when they're asked what's going on with the band, why'd you change your name, why'd you change your sound. It's like, well, this is what we're doing, this is what this is the plan. So I think that consistency is key. Facebook is a bit more annoying. You have to submit for a change, and then if they approve you, they're just going to switch it whenever they want. So sometimes you got to wait like a week, and then all of a sudden it switches, and if you don't have time to tell your fans first, it's very confusing, and so Facebook is a bit annoying. But the other platforms are not so difficult. And then if you have a situation where you're part of a band that did well and then you're going and breaking away solo, we've been working with a lot of artists in that situation recently. It's more about segueing if you still have access to the artists' platforms, posting like, hey, blah blah blah's got a new project, support them here. Not going overboard, but maybe light, tasteful messages that segue the fans over. Maybe the first people who come over will get sneak peek of a new song, and incentivizing that transition. We worked with an artist, Gaslight Anthem, and Brian Fallon broke off to do his own thing, and then we had to kind of do these like light, tasteful posts to just kind of segue over. And I think that the fans are generally, hopefully, going to be fans of the new project, but not all of them will come, and that's okay too. Do you want to?
I pretty much echo exactly what you said, down to the Facebook being a little annoying about it. We had a challenge with that. They actually took almost a month to switch the handle from Net6 on Facebook. We did all the stuff that she said. We met about it. We worked with a PR person, and we had a full rollout of everything. We even did like videos explaining why we made the change, and they're all up on our YouTube channel, which is also 2 Mile Hill. We had put them on Facebook as well. So everything was rolled out. The thing that, to me, looking back, I would have done a little differently would have been to have the content get out to more people, because a lot of people still don't really know that we are now 2 Mile Hill, or why we changed it to 2 Mile Hill. So I would have liked to have done it in a bigger way, perhaps even attached some form of performance to it, a live performance, because that's something that was definitely missing. I think that if we had done a live performance with a full marketing strategy behind it, then it would have reached more people. People would be like, oh wait, that's those guys, that's the big hair fella. Oh wait, he cut it. Wait, he got highlights and stuff, you know what I mean? So that would have happened, and then the conversation would have continued. So
Yeah, it's tricky.
pretty much, everything that she said is what we did.
It's tricky to get everyone, but the super fans will generally be in the loop, and those are the ones that are going to permeate the rest of the community as well. So it's also a process. So I would even suggest, if you're able to, for a while, having on your new Facebook page in brackets the old band name, and then slowly you can drop that, or on your social say formerly blah blah blah, and then you can drop that.
Sari, just wanted to, maybe I should come to the mic. For persons who are interested in seeing an example of a Caribbean artist who really utilizes social media, and I think the Huffington Post had an article about her, Destra Garcia, and the way that she approaches it. So if any of you have your laptops or so, you want to Google it or look at it, Huffington Post, Destra Garcia on social media, because she does an excellent job of that. And I think they may also have a number of other articles there related to perhaps why Caribbean does not make full use of social media as a marketing tool, and they have a number of articles on the music sector and creative industry sector as well. So
Cool. Yeah, there is so much information online, and if you have a specific question, I'm happy to send you articles and we can email about it. Before we move on from social media, I will mention one area that we didn't really dive into here, but could be kind of a follow-up, and is the social advertising, and that's a whole other beast in knowing when to spend money and how to maximize a small budget, and having a little budget to put behind your. We talked a little bit about boosting posts and doing like ads. That's really helpful, but also YouTube has a really powerful advertising platform where if you did little clips of your music video, you can target them to play in the pre-roll ads in front of other people's YouTube videos of that you think fans of that band might like what you're doing, stuff like that. That's a really good way to get views up on the video and attract new fans. And then Instagram has an advertising platform. Twitter Twitter I have not seen be as instrumental, but Facebook and YouTube have been very helpful for building online new fans and getting them in. But then you have to remember they're only passive fans at that point. So it's your job to engage with them enough so that they turn into super fans from that point. So it's a hard, slow, long process, but it will pay off if you stay focused. Okay, so we're going to move on from social. We're now going to talk a little bit more about connecting, networking, and truly figuring out how to connect with the industry. And when I say the industry, I'm talking about when you're approaching agents, managers, publicists, promoters, journalists, anyone that kind of falls under that scope. So some general thoughts. Don't underestimate the value of face-to-face conversation. I think I mentioned this already, but most of my business partners and people that I've truly worked with, I've got the chance to meet in person and really make a relationship. Sometimes, though, those conversations start on email, which leads to that in-person meeting. So use it as a tool, of course. Don't be afraid to place yourself at industry conferences and events, and be generous in introduction. So everyone's here today. This is a great place for you to walk away with a bunch of great contacts, and people have different experiences and different contacts of people who they could potentially connect you with in the future as well. So think about the long game every time you're meeting someone, because what meets the eye might be a small piece of the puzzle of how they could be useful to you in the future. Be sure to welcome introductions from other people. Make an effort to really listen. I find that connecting with people sometimes not about your music and completely about something different is a more genuine connection to lay the groundwork. So some of the best conversations or industry people that I've been able to work with started with us, you know, just kind of shooting the shit and talking about their daughter and how they're stressed. You know, like find out what's going on in their world right now, and I'm like, oh, their dog is having a surgery, and chat about that for 20 minutes, and then and about your dog passed away because of this or whatever. Find within the first few seconds of me, someone find common ground, and it might be totally not what you thought it was going to be. It might be anything. And you are all very intelligent, educated people who have a world of experiences to pull from. And you meet someone and you just kind of start chatting and figure out, hey, how are you doing? How's your day? Or what's keeping you busy right now? I always ask that. What's keeping you busy? And then they're like, oh, I'm just really stressed because blah, 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 blah. They're like, oh, like totally. And talk about them. And then at the end of that, they might be like, oh, so what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm an artist. I work on this type of music. I'm from, you know, the bustling Barbados community, and I'm out here to blah, 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 blah. Oh, cool, send me your stuff. Sure, you know, and all of a sudden you've got the invite now rather than you being like, hey, I really want you to listen to my band, blah, 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 you know, and there's just no common ground. There's no reason why they should listen to it. They don't know you. They don't understand why they should listen to it. Now at the end of the conversation. And if they don't ask that key question, well, what do you do? Which hopefully they do, because it's just rude if they don't. But if they don't ask it, you can also just say, hey, so I'm just here meeting people. I'd love to send you some music if you're open to listening to it. You have to remember that even if you're meeting someone that you've been researching for like 3 years and you love their label, you love their management roster, and you're like obsessed with them, you know everything about them, you've been following them on social media, you still got to kind of play it in a way where you're on equal playing fields. They're not here, you're not here. You have to remember you have a lot of value in that conversation, and it's easy to feel small in those conversations and feel like, oh, I'm just another artist trying to sell them something, and it's just, you know, but that's not true. You could be the artist that makes them a lot of money and turns into a really smart, or you could be the artist that makes someone else a lot of money and they're forever kicking themselves saying, why didn't I have that conversation properly with that person, you know? So you have an equal value. You have something to bring to the table. You're talented and you have unique experiences that are super valuable. So don't forget that, and then try to connect on a common ground first, and then talk about your music second. Don't forget to ask for a business card, of course. Follow up is key. You can meet 1 million people, and then, you know, nothing will happen unless you stay on it and you stay consistent. Something we're going to talk about more about with the email outreach is identifying 3 highlights about your band, artist, business that you can easily roll off the tip of your tongue, so kind of your elevator pitch, so that you can present yourself really well to the outside world. And 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 someone else wants to introduce you to someone else, they'll remember these things. They'll be like, oh, he did this and this and this, and you guys should meet, and so it just kind of keeps things really tight and consistent, and you want to be able to distill your highlights into that, because it's too much if you kind of go overboard. You send these long emails and no one reads it. It just gets lost. Keep it concise. And then share selling points as press highlights, tour history, album releases, festival appearances, etc., and include links. So something we're going to really drill into right now is email outreach. And actually, we'll skip right to this page. So this is the same email. This is an example of what I think is a nice, concise outreach email to the industry. Now, you might want to tweak it and change it based on, that's fine. There's not one size fits all. It's not that simple. But let's walk through what these key components of this email are that I think make it. And as someone who receives a lot of these emails, a lot of bands sending stuff, these are the types of emails that show me, okay, they kind of get it. They get it. They're not being too pushy. They're not like, please be my manager right now. I'm like, you don't even know me. You don't even know if you want me to be your manager. I could be crazy. We've never met. I would only manage someone if there's a close relationship already. But it's more about having a goal of inviting someone to a show or getting them to listen to a single or a video, and you want to be very pointed in that goal. You're not asking for too much. You're just asking for a little moment. You just want to get their thoughts on something. So dear first name, I'd like to introduce you to my rock band, blah, blah, blah band. Out of burgeoning Bridgetown, Barbados music community. I don't know if Bridgetown is actually accurate for where we are, but wherever your community is. And then also having an adjective about the community, which we talked about, which can be one of the things that we work on with that community brand. That's a chance to plug it in there. We just wrapped up a 20-date tour throughout Europe, prior to which we were on Vans Warped Tour Festival circuit throughout the US, and our collaboration track with Arcade Fire has seen over 200K streams on Spotify after being released this week. So obviously not all of us, I don't even have cool points like that. I made this up out of thin air. But the point is that the things that I bolded, so 3 career highlights, are things that people can recognize and they can identify with, and the industry people can be like, yeah, I know that tour. Yeah, I know Spotify. I know that's like a good number of streams. It's something that speaks to them regardless of where they are. We're going to send this out as well. And so sometimes I actually even bold it when I send it to the people that, I have to send emails to agents all the time for my artists and try to get them on board or try to introduce them into a new market. And sometimes I keep it bold just so it's stands out to them right when they receive the email. Next part, I've included a video and audio link below. I would love to invite you to our show on June 23rd at the Troubadour. We would love to hear your thoughts on our new single, as we're in the process of looking for a new label partner surrounding our 2017 full-length release. So it's a specific ask, not too intrusive. It's not asking for a lot. Just inviting them to a show. They go to shows all the time. It's no big deal. It's a clear reasoning for why you're reaching out to them and what you're looking for. So we're looking for a new label partner. That's why I'm reaching out to you as a label. And also, it goes without saying that you want to make sure that that label actually works with the type of music that you make, that it actually would make sense and it's a relevant contact. And the way that you said it, this type of language, we're in the process of looking for a new label partner surrounding our 2017 release, doesn't come off desperate. It's not like we really are struggling and we are just dying for a label. We've never had one before. You don't need to say any of that. You don't even need to say, we're new and we've never been signed and this is our first time emailing you. You don't have to say anything. All you have to say is a nice, professional, concise sentence that explains, we're just looking for a new partner. And it also is, it's mature in a way that's we're picky. We don't want all partners, but we think you might be a good fit. So maybe you'd want to be a partner with us, YouTube, SoundCloud link. You're not making them download anything. You're not sending these large files that are going to clog their inbox and they're going to get pissed off. And YouTube and SoundCloud, I say, generally are good ones that are really easy. They recognize. They probably have them open on their computer right at that moment. So it's okay, I'll take a quick listen, whatever. We look forward to discussing further. And then all your contact info and all your links for your social medias, blah, blah, blah. So you might want to mention, like, one of your key points could be like, oh, we've just reached 500K likes on Facebook, whatever. That might be one of your key points, but you don't have to highlight your social stats. You don't need to submit a whole package unless they ask for more information. I'd say this is a good email just to start the conversation and say, hey, this is what we're up to, this is what we're looking for, we're going to be around your area. We would love to see you come out. And in my experience, this type of thing has worked. Another key thing, and probably the way that I have built my business, is by sending a lot of emails, like 500 emails. If you're going on tour, I'll literally hit all the agents, but I'll tweak them to sound personal with these things and to change. But like, it takes a lot to get responsive. When you feel like you're doing it wrong, you're not. You're just grinding it out, and it is just tiring, and it just takes a long time. And then it takes one person to say, yeah, I'll come out. Hey, like, we should work together. That was really great. It takes one person to make a big impact, but you are just feeling out and kind of getting the conversation started. And you don't know which one of those conversations could be something. So I would say send a lot of emails. It's free. It just takes a lot of time and sanity, and yeah. And it will work. Someone will jump up. I mean, this, of course, is assuming your music is really great, really on point, and that you're targeting the right people. Do you have any other questions? Okay, let's whiz through the next part of the presentation, because it talks more about framing and building your story, and how that can be, and it's kind of what we've already started. So these 3 highlights, they're part of your story, and framing and some of the things I just tweaked in terms of talking about numbers, that's more for the industry. But now we're going to talk about more fan-facing story and media-facing, and they don't care about how many people you play to, or you don't need to talk numbers with the fans because that's annoying, or record deals, but you can talk, when do you want me to stop? I know we're already over time. Can we do like 10 minutes?
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. So this is more about your story facing the public and how you're actually going to build fans and keep them excited and keep them engaged, because you're not just like every other artist. You're unique and you have your own story. So what makes a story compelling? So your story is important. It'll be synonymous with your name. It's synonymous with your brand, and it is important to craft and communicate it. And sometimes you have a really cool story, but you might not be telling it in the most intriguing way, or your image might not be suiting it, or this goes hand in hand with image, and I know we talked about that specifically, and you really got to live and breathe this brand and commit to it. And then you've got to frame it in a certain way. So an example of a compelling story, and we've probably all heard about it too much, is like Madonna. And if you ask anyone in New York or any city how she started, they'll be like, oh, she moved to New York, she had $30 in her pocket. And that's like and so $30, that's a very specific thing that a lot of people know. And that's because of how she told her story and how they branded it. And so it's not just like, oh, she was really poor and she moved and she didn't have anywhere to live, but those are things that are not as visual that you can't. It's like she moved in, she had $30 in her pocket, and she had to fight and finally weaseled her way into a good situation, and like that. That's the framing that I'm talking about. So the $30 versus the really poor. So it's two different. So crafting your story. These are some questions you can ask yourself when you're thinking about really drilling down your story. And so before we even do that, where is your story going to show up? First, your bio on your website, on all your social platforms. Second, it's going to show up on your press materials, your EPK, your materials that go out to media for them to consider covering you, and it'll be mentioned in your press releases. It'll be mentioned if you have any people that you work with, like managers or agents, it'll be mentioned on their website. So this is the story that needs to be consistent, and then it'll also be talked about. So the media, when they get their bio and they're preparing to interview you, they're pulling stuff directly from that bio. So if you don't want to talk about something in the media, then don't put it in your bio. Or if you do, put it in your bio. So that is a key component. So consider the basics. What inspires you? How and when did you get your start in the industry? Who are your influences? Those are things that every journalist asks you, and if you've done interviews, you know that it's just like the normal fodder of like what they roll out. But what makes it different is how you answer those questions. And you need, when you're starting, you need the media more than they need you. And you need to use those opportunities to build your brand and to make a claim that you should be listened to, that a fan should just try to check out your song and based on an article. And so you've got a lot to prove in a short period of time. So from there, it's important to get specific with certain anecdotes. So is there a specific event or situation that inspired your music or sound? Have any of them informed your songwriting process? How? So I'll give an example of a band. So we worked with this rock band in Canada called the Glorious Sons, and we started working with them. They had a song that got some good attention on radio, but they were just a bunch of dudes, and they didn't expect that to happen. And so we sat down, their manager brought them in, and I said, okay, tell me a little bit more about, okay, you grew up in a small town. Okay, most people have grown up in small towns. You guys all went to school together, you met and hung out, and you used to jam. Okay, who hasn't done that? So that's not a story, that's not a compelling bio. But when I started to ask more questions, where would you hang out? What was the vibe? What did it look like? What did it feel like? So it turns out that I don't remember the exact, but there was this old, what's the word, a meat locker, where it was like a butcher shop. It was like an old butcher shop where they used to hang the meat out back, and they used to just hang out there, and that became their jam space, and it was just an abandoned shack. And so we turned that component into their story of this butcher shop that came to house these ideas that then birthed these great songs that then came onto the radio. And that's more something to kind of hang your hat on than just a blank story, a blank slate. That's not the best example. Let me think of some better ones too. Even thinking about where you're from and certain regions and being more specific rather than wide is important. So if you say, I'm just from Barbados, to someone be okay, cool, I'm from this neighborhood in Barbados that means a lot to me because of this and is known for this and is part of this community and is this. Or instead of being we met our bandmates just because we were all going to school together and we started jamming, it could be more originally I saw Johnny and he was just this brilliant guitar player. He didn't even know it, but he used to just do these covers, and I was dude, you should come and play with me in my band. And from that we were just jamming because we were both really into Led Zeppelin. And so you're getting really specific with the story so people can actually visualize it and walk through it with you. Same thing with when you're doing interviews and someone asks you, how did it feel like to record with blah, 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 producer? And you can say, yeah, it was good. I mean, the truth is a recording is recording. There's not a grant. You're sitting in the studio for hours on end, and it gets boring, and it gets exciting, and it gets boring, but it's not. But what you could say is it was, it was really a special experience because we did these different techniques where you run the mics through a fan to get these different techniques. Or Johnny came in one day and he was just scrap that song, we're going to sit down and write something new right now, and we just came up with this hook on the spot. And or we were out for lunch at Taco Bell and he had this idea. And those are things that you're telling them a story, you're enchanting them, you have this chance to woo them with a fun story, and you also get to show off your personality and so I'm not saying make something up, I'm saying take the story that exists and spin it so that it's more engaging for people. So tips and tricks for writing your bio: be informative and don't assume that people know anything about you. Don't assume they know anything about Barbados. Don't assume they know about your genre. You're really educating them. Describe your sound, make it clear and captivating. Outline your selling points, highlights. We talked about that. Try to identify, share something unique. So that's about kind of finding the common ground as well. A lot of artists will use that in their bios where it's I grew up in this small town at this, and my mom was this and this, and everyone's hey, that's me. And it creates a common ground. Paint a picture with visuals and anecdotes. Tell a story you want to read and have fun with it. And so I'm going to send around some good bios that I really like. But one of my favorite bios from a band that's nowhere to be seen now, but they were called Ground Unicorn Horn, horrible band name. And this bio, I didn't even like the band that much, but this bio really stood out to me. When I was young, I started in the industry as a journalist, and people would send me their records to review. And this bio was like more of a poem, and it was like really, it was just really like harshly written and not proper grammar, and it was like really emotional. And then when I listened to the band, which it made me listen to the band, because I was like, well, what is this? And then I listened, and it was like this weird grindcore band, and I was like, oh yeah, the bio was written like the song sound, you know? Now that's not the only thing you should do in a bio. I think it's one piece of the puzzle, but the bio is an extension of your music. So it's a piece of, art. It's a written piece of art to go along with your music. So I think it should be written in the way that your music sounds, and then you at the end get a little bit more informative with the nitty gritty of like, this is what I've done, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, blah blah blah, So those are some of my favorite bios. Have any of you guys had the opportunity of being like interviewed for magazines or for blogs and stuff like that? Cool. Have you generally liked it or hated it or found that they've like misquoted you or? Okay, so here's some interview tips and tricks, and it's in the same vein of painting a story and spinning a picture in a way that people actually, and now these are specifically, there's another one we'll go through that are radio and TV. These are more so for print. Use vocal variety, so let your voice and delivery reflect the spectrum of emotions. So if you're doing a phone interview, if you haven't noticed, everyone kind of sounds sad on the phone, and unless you're like being really peppy or like you're really trying. So when you're speaking to someone on the phone, it's really easy to be like, hey man, what's up? And it just sounds like, whoa, what's wrong? Like, why are you so down? But if you're like, hey, how's it going? And you really have to try to push that emotion through the phone, because it's like not the best medium to try to do like an interview. But if you get the interviewer excited, then they're going to ask better questions and they're going to be more engaged, and it's going to go both ways, and like I said, in most cases you need the media more than they need you. Sometimes you have journalists interviewing you who are really experienced, really good at their jobs. Sometimes you have kids from school who just decided to start a blog and don't even really know how to do grammar properly yet, and it's really tricky. So ultimately it doesn't matter. How you come across is something you need to own regardless of how bad the interviewer is or not. Use gestures that complement your expression of ideas. Maintain eye contact, so this is if it's in person. And be friendly and approachable. Listen carefully to each question to deliver an accurate response. Sometimes you'll see like you can get off topic or like go on a stream, which is fine if it's relevant and interesting of a story, but bring it back to the question. And never answer a question with no comment. Anticipate difficult questions and how. So if you know that there might be something controversial or some kind of dirt someone's trying to stir up or something, I think it's always better just, to try to have a statement prepared or a way of handling it. And it doesn't always mean you have to address and be like, no comment, and blah, 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 and that kind of creates a bigger drama sometimes. But it means that you can be like, we support all types of things. And you don't have to say anything, but you say everything, Like, we don't support violence in any way. It's like, oh. You kind of like shut it down. I love shutting stuff down. That's like the best feeling when someone's trying to stir up something and you're like, nope, nothing here for you to find, Avoid providing technical answers and like industry jargon. So media don't care if you just got an advance on your record deal or you just recouped and you're so stoked. Like, that's not a story that they understand or care about unless it's like an industry magazine. But generally, and they also don't care about like what type of mics you used or like what kind of board was recorded the record with. And it's generally, you got to think about the fans and what they want to hear, and it's got to be a bit more colorful than those things. And be punctual. Being late, obviously, is not good, especially for media. It looks really disrespectful. And for any industry, for load-in, for any opportunity that you have, even the most professional bands still will make a point to show up on time, and their tour managers, and they'll be like, we are never late, and that's what we're known for. And then the people who are known for being late, people hate working with them, and it drives everyone nuts, and it's just disrespectful to people's time. Interview tips and tricks for radio and TV. Know the length of your interview. That will also allow you to understand how long and short you should answer questions and how to wrap it up. If it's for like a TV interview, it's good to repeat back the question that they ask you. So if they say, we heard that you recorded with Johnny, how was that? And then you would answer back and say, yeah, we had the amazing opportunity to record with Johnny, so you've confirmed it, because sometimes the question isn't in the answer, and it leaves too much room for them to make the sentence about something else. Know that your host wants the interview to go well, so relax. Television, maintain eye contact. Even if your other bandmates are talking and you're not the one talking, look at them when they're talking and nod them along. Like, yeah. There's been so many interviews I've seen with artists, and there's like one person talking and the rest of the band's like, ah. And you're just like, oh, it's like, get them out. Get them off the camera if they're, they're like picking their nails or something, and it's just like, ugh. Horrible. You gotta remain genuine, and it doesn't have to be like, it could just be kind of like, listening intently. If you want the viewers to be watching and listening intently, you kind of gotta demonstrate it for them, so the other band members be like, even they're just standing there watching the person talk, it's fine, but just don't be distracted, or like looking at your phone or something. It just looks really, it can get really confused, distracting. Always assume that you are on the record, in that sense that you are oh, this is off the record, we're buddies. It's, media is on the record, and you should, this also goes to a larger part of the conversation that I should have even started with, is that you should never just be going around gossiping and shit talking, and it really goes a long way to have the reputation that you are someone who doesn't stand for that, and who respects people, hears them out, and is open to, and approachable. And I think that when you set the standard where you're going around and talking about people, or you're getting kind of petty on things, people are going to think, well, what are they going to talk about me next to the next person? And they'll close up, and they won't open up, and they won't want to collaborate with you and do business with you, and it creates a bad kind of. So media, be careful about what you say all the time. Be aware of your body language. I talked about that. Here's some more interview tips and tricks. So we talked, don't speak off the record. Know that most journalists will not send copy for you approved before it goes to print, so be aware of what you're saying. Also make sure that you're in a good mood for the interview. And if you have an interview coming up, maybe it means don't stay out so late the night before, or don't do it when you're drunk or high, or completely not able to deliver. And I'm saying that because it actually comes up a lot, where we've had artists where they have a morning television appearance at 6:30 a.m. and they show up wasted from the night before, and we've had the producers shut it down, and then I drop the client because I'm like, you messed with my relationship with the TV station, which all of my clients need to benefit from. So it's not worth it unless you are at that level and that's your shtick and that's your brand. Even then, it's got to be a little bit managed, But yeah, you got to be careful. And I think that gone are the days where it's really cool to trash your hotel room and trash the blah blah blah. In these days, people don't have that kind of money anymore to laugh at that. It's more like, okay, well, I'm never booking that band again because they're assholes. So and enjoy yourself and have fun with media, and and also when you're networking with media, it's good to always understand, you never know which friends you're going to have that could, pull off a great article for you in the moments that you need it. And usually they don't come from people who are random strangers when you're starting out. Usually it's people who are in your community and who are know your reputation and know what you're up to and as well. And then another thing is when you're pitching yourself for media is think about if you're talking to someone who is the entertainment writer for all forms of entertainment, or if they're the lifestyle. So they have like a lot of stuff going on, different types of coverage. And so maybe if they're doing an article about 5 ways to market your small business with, small budget, maybe then you see an opportunity for yourself to fit in and be like, well, my band's a business and I have to market on a small budget all the time. So look for ways to weasel into media situations that might not be like that obvious. They might be a little bit more discreet. And that is everything I have to say. And there's my email address, so you can email me. Thank you.